Have you ever asked yourself how many decisions in your life were truly your own? How many times did you feel in control when in reality you were merely reacting? And what if I told you that what you call kindness or empathy might actually be the very force keeping you in captivity? The one who seeks to dominate others may appear powerful, but the one who has mastered themselves is truly invincible. The wise one, the one who governs their own spirit, is stronger than one who takes a city. This echoes the wisdom found in Proverbs, and it is Carl Jung who warns us with calm precision that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. All of us, at some point, have been hostages to our own emotions. You've cried over someone who never deserved a single tear. Have you ever felt guilty for saying no, even when you knew it was the right thing to do? How many times were you manipulated without even realizing it, just because your compassion outweighed your discernment? We live in an age where chains are no longer made of iron. They're invisible. They're made of guilt, fear, and unspoken expectations. Those who wish to control you today do not raise their voices. They whisper, they weep, they make you feel guilty for choosing your freedom. They don't want you to think. They want you to feel. Because the more you feel, the less you think. And the less you think, the more likely you are to betray yourself. Here, we will explore Jung's ideas, not as a doctrine of cruelty, but as a mirror reflecting human reality. We will descend into the underground of human behavior, where tears become traps and embraces may conceal silent strangulation. And no, this is not about becoming stone. It's about refusing to be a puppet. It's about discovering the precise point between emotion and reason. It's about becoming the master of your own psyche. If you're tired of being drained, manipulated, and consumed by those who turn their wounds into weapons and their lack into strategy, stay with us. We are going to dive into the depths of the unconscious, where Jung whispers, power doesn't corrupt, it reveals. You're about to discover that the path to mastery may require not feeling everything, but understanding everything. If you're ready, take a deep breath. Let's begin. Have you ever felt that feeling deeply is both your greatest strength and your greatest downfall? Since childhood, we've been taught that crying is a sign of humanity, that forgiveness is noble, that to feel deeply is to be good. But what if that was a trap? A golden cage where the more you feel, the more you bleed. Society dressed emotion in garments of virtue. But Jung, with his penetrating gaze and surgical insight, reminds us that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Those who feel too much are often the first to be deceived. Why? Because the one who feels hesitates, and the one who hesitates loses. What no one tells you is that emotion, as beautiful as it may be, can also be used as an instrument of domination. Like wine poured by manipulative hands, it intoxicates, warms, and then binds. How many times have you said yes when every part of you wanted to scream no? How many times did you stay, even when your soul was begging to leave, because the other person cried, shook, or begged? The brutal truth is that excess empathy can become submission. It's not that feeling is wrong. It's that feeling without boundaries, without discernment, is dangerous. It's like lighting a candle in the middle of a storm. It may shine for a moment, but it is easily extinguished. And the world is full of storms, full of people who blow in your direction not to warm you, but to snuff out your light. In some silent hour of the night, alone with your thoughts, have you realized that you carry pain that doesn't even belong to you? Inherited guilt, imposed responsibilities, expectations you were never meant to fulfill. You feel for everyone, but no one seems to feel for you. You carry the weight of a world that doesn't even notice your shoulders. That is not kindness. That is emotional servitude. Jung reminds us that reason becomes unproductive when it is not rooted in the totality of the psyche, and those who reject it cannot be swayed by it. You don't awaken the unconscious in others through empathy. You simply feed their defense mechanisms. Uncontrolled emotion is not a virtue. It is exposure, and the one who lives with their heart too open becomes an easy map for those who seek to exploit it. Love without discernment, forgiveness without reflection, compassion without boundaries. It all sounds beautiful in inspirational quotes, but in practice, it destroys. This is not about turning into stone. It's about recognizing that even gold must be protected. You are far too valuable to be so accessible. Your emotional energy is a finite resource, and like all finite things, it must be managed with intention and strategy. This is where true self-knowledge begins, when you realize that you don't need to react to everything you feel. You can feel, and yet remain still. You can understand, and still choose not to accept. You can listen to someone's pain, and still prioritize your own peace. Detachment, not as coldness, but as conscious self-mastery. It's the ability to become the author of your emotional narrative, rather than the character others attempt to write against your will. And perhaps, just perhaps, true freedom begins right here, in the moment you stop trying to rescue everyone and start liberating yourself from yourself. They don't need to raise a hand to wound you. They don't need to shout to dominate you. All they need is for you to feel. The more you feel, the more predictable you become. And if you are predictable, you are controllable. Carl Jung understood this long before modern psychology could fully articulate it. For Jung, true power lies in the relationship between the unconscious and the self, not in domination, but in awareness. And awareness reveals this: human beings act from emotion before reason, and those who understand this govern. Today, the throne is no longer found in castles. It resides in relationships, in social media, in the silent games of emotional influence. Emotional blackmail is now mistaken for affection. Victimhood disguises itself as vulnerability. And the manipulator, he doesn't arrive as the villain. He cries before he strikes. We live in an era where tears wield more power than logic, because emotion shortens the path to the heart and derails the mind. You no longer need to be right. It's enough to appear wounded, and the emotional court of public opinion will absolve or condemn you on that alone. Have you noticed how someone suddenly changes when confronted? First, they play the offended, then the misunderstood, then they say, "After all I did for you." That's not remorse. That's control. This is not about who's right. It's about who holds the narrative. And in this invisible theater, emotion becomes the script that intoxicates, confuses, and disarms. You find yourself explaining things you didn't do, apologizing for things you don't even understand, defending truths that should never have been questioned. That is the goal. To take away your clarity so that, lost in the fog, you rely on them. They sow confusion and offer themselves as the compass. Jung once warned that what remains unconscious in you will appear in your life as fate. And here it is, the unresolved wounds, the shadow in disguise, seeking power over you. But there's another kind of danger, not the one who suffers in silence, but the one who pretends to suffer to avoid accountability. These are not victims. They are actors, turning your empathy into a tool of control. This is where the idea of emotional sovereignty emerges. It's not about being indifferent to the world, but about recognizing that to survive it, you cannot hand over the steering wheel of your psyche to those who only want to drive you into ruin. Every time you hesitate out of pity, every time you back down to avoid seeming harsh, every time you silence your truth to avoid conflict, you lose ground, you surrender emotional territory, and those who conquer it rarely return it. You must understand, emotional silence is not the absence of feeling. It is strategy. It's the sword of the inner warrior who, instead of striking, observes, and when necessary, steps back, but never surrenders. Because in the end, this silent war is not won by shouting. It is won with presence, with resolve, with the kind of coldness that doesn't come from a lack of love, but from lucidity, the kind Jung would respect, not because it dominates, but because it is self-governing. Jung never advocated cruelty. He didn't glorify detachment for its own sake, but as a path toward inner clarity. In a world where every emotional gesture is a map of your psyche, silence becomes camouflage, and detachment a subtle form of freedom. When Jung spoke of individuation, he wasn't promoting isolation. He was describing the sacred process of becoming whole, free from the projections and expectations of others. That often misunderstood phrase, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both," was never a celebration of fear. It was a warning against emotional dependency as a foundation for authority. It wasn't about dehumanization. It was a raw dissection of power. And Jung would have likely agreed. The one who governs their inner world, who embraces their shadow, who knows the silence within, cannot be ruled by noise from the outside. When power rests in affection, it dissolves with the fluctuation of feelings. The detachment Carl Jung suggests is not emptiness. It is the ability to govern your impulses before they govern you. It's seeing someone's tears and asking, is this genuine pain or a strategic mask? It's walking among emotions, yet remaining centered within the self. And here lies the most delicate point. Being emotionally strategic does not mean becoming cold. It means becoming fair to yourself. It means not punishing yourself with promises made in the heat of emotion. It's realizing that the yes you say to please others is often a disguised no toward your own truth. Have you noticed how those without boundaries are always more exhausted? How those who feel too much are often caught in the middle of dramas they didn't start? In this sense, detachment is not a withdrawal from empathy, but the maturity to choose when and where to invest your emotional energy. Think about it. Would you let anyone drive your car at full speed through mountain curves while you sleep in the back seat? Of course not. Yet every day, you allow others to steer your emotions, and with them, your decisions. Jung, although misunderstood at times, was a profound observer of the human psyche. He didn't ask us to be indifferent. He asked us to be aware. And awareness requires distance, not cold, inhuman distance, but the distance necessary to perceive the whole. Not just the emotional theater unfolding before you. You don't have to be a stone, but you also don't have to be a sponge. And this brings us to a deep psychological concept, aligned with Jung and Stoic thought: equanimity, the peace of the soul that arises when you stop reacting to what you cannot control. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgment about them." And if you learn to discern between authentic emotion and emotional manipulation, you'll be on the path to true inner sovereignty. Detachment, then, is not the absence of feeling. It is the presence of awareness. It's not allowing someone else's tears to dictate your ethics. It's saying no without hatred, yes without guilt, goodbye without drama. Because those who can't let go will always be dragged along. And as Jung might say, those who gain favor from others must not depend on it, for what is given by the collective can be taken away. But when the oppressor is your own emotion, then true self-mastery is born, not in contempt for others, but in unwavering respect for yourself. And that respect, that center, that coldness that does not kill but protects, is the rarest form of freedom. Becoming unshakable doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you learn to feel without drowning. It's like diving into the ocean and knowing how to swim instead of sinking every time an emotional wave rises. In today's world, true weakness isn't in feeling nothing. It's in being ruled by every feeling. Do you remember how many times your peace was shattered by an unanswered message, a calculated silence, a glance that implied guilt? These small moments are actually hooks thrown by those who know that human emotion, especially guilt and the need to be accepted, are the easiest buttons to push. You must understand this. There are people who feed off your imbalance. They thrive on your need to explain, to be understood, to be liked. Every time you justify your absence, your decision, your boundary, you open a door, and when they enter, they don't knock. They invade, rearrange your inner space, and worse, make you feel guilty for wanting to reclaim it. But there's a secret, one that almost no one teaches. You can feel and not respond. You can listen and not absorb. You can witness another's pain and still not sacrifice yourself. That's not coldness. It's wisdom. It's the difference between being a conscious individual and being part of a manipulated crowd. That's the key. You are not what you feel. You are what you choose to do with what you feel. Once you understand that, everything changes. You begin to see the invisible game. Every accusation, every silence, every crisis becomes a piece on the board. And on that board, the king is the one who remains still while everything else trembles. To be emotionally unshakable means this: to remain whole in the middle of the war, to not react impulsively, to respond with clarity. And perhaps more than anything, it means understanding that you no longer need to prove anything. You don't need to justify your no. You don't need to explain your distance. You are not open code. You are sacred territory, and access to that territory must be earned, not demanded. Carl Jung didn't want you to stop feeling. He wanted you to stop being a slave to what you feel. He wanted you to become the master of yourself. And in this digital hysteria, where everyone shouts, where everyone is offended, where everything becomes drama, your calm is a revolution. Your calculated indifference is a shield. Your silence is the new scream of freedom. You may be called insensitive, cold, distant, but what you're really becoming is free. Because being free means no longer living based on other people's emotions. It means not allowing yesterday's tears to determine tomorrow's path. It means understanding that empathy without limits becomes a chain, and that the only way to break free is to stop reacting. You were not born to be manipulated. You were born to be whole. And maybe, in the end, the most honest question you can ask yourself is, how many times did my emotions speak louder and I silence myself? You no longer need to be everyone's hero. Not if that means becoming the villain in your own story. Empathy without discernment becomes a trap. Love without wisdom becomes a prison. Guilt planted in your heart becomes a leash. And without realizing it, you end up living a script written by someone who never truly saw you. Jung didn't preach emotional detachment. He preached lucidity, the conscious presence of self. He understood that one who rules their own heart does not surrender to emotional blackmail. They don't lose sleep trying to understand someone who never intended to be understood. They don't carry burdens disguised as cries for help that are actually attempts at control. You have the right to protect your peace as if it were your final frontier, because maybe it is. You have the right to say no without explanation, to close doors without a warning, to love without self-sacrifice. True power doesn't lie in feeling less. It lies in feeling with wisdom, in choosing what deserves your affection and what deserves only silence. And when you realize that you can look into the eyes of someone who used to manipulate you and feel no anger, no fear, no guilt, only a quiet, cold respect from someone who can no longer be touched, you'll understand that is the beginning of freedom, the birth of the unshakable self, and the end of the old you, the one made of doubt, tears, and self-abandonment. You're not here to please others. You're here to be whole. And sometimes being whole means feeling nothing, so that you can finally control everything. Let me tell you something I had never said out loud before. This script, this message, was not born from a brilliant idea. It was born from a scar. On a random night, phone in hand, a message appeared on the screen. Words that seemed like affection, but carried hidden venom. I read it, swallowed hard, and for a few seconds I thought of replying, apologizing, even though I had done nothing wrong, even though I knew it was just another emotional rope trying to tighten around my neck. And then I remembered all the times I gave in, all the times I kept quiet just to keep the peace. But it was never my peace. I bent out of fear of seeming cruel. I was kind until I lost myself. That night, there were no screams, no replies, just a quiet awakening. I wasn't wrong to protect my space. It wasn't selfishness. It was survival. It was finally maturity. And maybe you're here for the same reason, because at some point in your life, you felt too much, and you were used for that, because you learned to be silent so as not to lose. But in that silence, you lost yourself. This video is a hug for you, a whisper that reminds you it's okay to set boundaries. Your heart wasn't made to be a showcase for other people's wounds. Your empathy should not be a prison. Now, I want to offer you something that isn't for everyone, but it is for you. You, who made it this far, searching for deeper answers about who you are and where your life is going. I created something that goes beyond a book. I built a map for the soul, a guide that merges science, philosophy, and critical thought, a tool to help you break mental patterns, question your identity, and rebuild yourself from the root. This isn't an ebook of pretty quotes. It's a guide for those who can no longer stand living on autopilot. If you felt something here, it's because something inside you is waking up. And I thank you for letting that truth breathe with you, even just for a moment. Truly, thank you. Hey, you, the one who stayed until the end. Yes, I'm talking to you. If this video stirred something deep inside, don't leave in silence, okay? Like the video, or pretend you liked it. Just help the algorithm. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel, because you know how it goes. You watch, you cry, you reflect, and then you forget where you found it. Turn on the notification bell. Yes, the one you always ignore. It exists for a reason. And leave a comment below. I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are finally ready to stop bleeding for those who only know how to press the wound. Now look at these two videos on the screen. One of them will show you a part of yourself you're still afraid to face. But that's okay. Click it. It'll be uncomfortable. But there are truths that only grow when we have the courage to face them in the dark. Go on. I'll see you at the next abyss, or the next awakening.